going to use those, so. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kathy Venema, the current president of the Lakeside Heritage Society, and we'd like to welcome you to our Sunday seminar. Some of us have already been to see the boats and the whatever they call those cars that go in the water. And so it's a good day, lots going on. But I have ventured out from the Heritage Society this year and am working at the shuffleboard courts, and it's been fun. You meet a whole new group of people, and so I'm beginning to see the love and passion of many of you in this room and the others that have been here this past times here for the tournaments, and again this week there's tournaments, so we welcome you to this session today. Just upcoming quick announcements. Tomorrow, Monday the 15th, we continue our book discussions of the chapters within the 150th anniversary book. So if you bought a book, you can bring it along. Dean Fick, our vice president, will be leading the discussion from about 1872 to 1906. And each week, we're doing a different section of the book. So we move up to the 2000s in a couple weeks. Wednesday afternoon, we have our history of the Chautauqua movement and beginnings of Lakeside presentation at 3:30 in the Egler Room, and Bill Carlson will be presenting that. And then this Friday, we have our Focused Friday historic tour, and that will be, you want to stand up? Bill Nicholson will be leading people on a tour of East Lakeside. And because that from here is a ways, you get to ride on the tram this time. So if you haven't signed up for the tour, for the tram tour of the East Lakeside, you can do that at the museum. And then next Sunday afternoon, Dave Bowling will make a presentation here at 1:30, but at 2 o'clock, you can leave here and go have cake and ice cream because we're celebrating Heritage Day out on Walnut Plaza. And we're going to have bundt cake bingo, and we're going to have Diane Hartenberg will be providing bundt cakes as prizes for the winners of some of those games. And Steve B. Miller, who is a retired auctioneer, is going to appraise up to 4 items for $5 if you bring them. He'll tell you an informal appraisal of what they're worth. So if you have a painting or grandma's something and you don't know what it's worth, bring it and let Steve look at it. So that will be, and then enjoy ice cream and cake. So at this time, Gretchen Curtis, who is an LHS board member and recruited our speaker today, will do an introduction.
It has been daunting a couple of times this year. I've heard myself referred to as one of Lakeside's historians. Now, I think, although I grade early, I'm not as old as George McCormick and Dave Glick. So to be called a historian says to me I must know something about a lot of historic things in Lakeside. But one of the historic things I know nothing about until about 2 years ago was shuffleboard. Literally, I knew nothing about shuffleboard, except that there was a tournament named after Larry Ferris, and that's because I knew his wife. So I was unfortunately or fortunately, assigned when we were writing the 150th book to do something about shuffleboard. And that was like, I guess out of the 4 of us who were actively writing, I was the one who said, yes, I'll do it, as opposed to, yes, I have something to say. So I asked around, and I was referred to Bill Hoyer as the person who could tell me something about the history of shuffleboard. So I called Bill, introduced myself over the phone. We arranged a time he would come to the archives, and literally we stood there introducing ourselves to each other, although we've both been here for decades. Bill is a graduate of The Ohio State University. He retired from 41 years of teaching in the public school system in Bexley, Ohio. He was also a coach there for 37 years of track, cross-country, and basketball. But before all of those sports, there was shuffleboard. Bill played his first tournament at Lakeside Shuffleboard Courts at the age of 6 and won his first tournament at the age of 8. So he was indeed the appropriate person for me to contact. Bill was named to the Ohio Shuffleboard Association Hall of Fame in 2018 and the National Shuffleboard Hall of Fame in 2019. He and his wife Barbara own a cottage on the lakefront, and as a teacher, he enjoyed many, many summers here in Lakeside. Please help me welcome Bill Hoyer.
Thank you, Gretchen. You took half my talk. I did coach basketball for quite a long time, and my wife was on the bleachers most of that time. My wife Barbara is right here. Stand up. And this better be good today because my granddaughter Nicole drove from Columbus to hear me. When I did enter my first tournament at age 6, my brother was age 4, and I think he still has the record for the youngest person to play in a youth tournament. The first shuffleboard courts, actually people played it on ships, they played a variation of the game, but it was in Daytona Beach, where some guy painted a couple triangles out in front of his hotel, and people liked to play that, and all of a sudden it caught on, and it spread all over Florida, and by 1928, there were quite a few clubs in Florida. Lakeside, though, is the actual birthplace of shuffleboard in Ohio. In 1928, Todd Fraser, who was a high school coach and assistant and a recreation director, suggested adding shuffleboard courts. You know, they had croquet and roque and some of those other games, but he wanted to add shuffleboard, so they put in 6 courts, and by 1 year, they needed more courts. People were playing all the time, so in 1929, they added 3 more courts. Bill Sly came to Lakeside in 1914. He took a Lakeside job in 1928, and in 1932, he became full-time director of Lakeside Shuffleboard. He is called the father of Lakeside Shuffleboard. But at that time, when he started youth tournaments in 1938, and it was 10 cents to enter. He had a rule, no shuffleboard on Sunday. He also had, which just amazes me, children's courts and adult courts. Children could not play on adults' courts. And if you played with your parents, you had to play on the children's courts. Discs and cues at that time were made by Frank Munger in the carpenter shop in downtown Lakeside near Cypress Cycles. And I brought a bunch of cues. I got some wooden cues, some aluminum cues. Where I goofed, I didn't bring one of my graphite cues, because that's what a lot of people play with today. But I've got some you can look at afterwards, and the ones that they pass out too down at the shack for free play. They were made of hard maple. The discs were actually made of wood also. The only problem was that sometimes they split apart when you shot, and half the disc could go in the 7 and half would go in the 10 off. The expert cues were made by Ross Mullen. He melted aluminum, pouring a cue head and fastening it to a bamboo fishing pole. The cue tips were cut from broom handles. Back then, they didn't have the glass beads to put on the courts like we do nowadays. So they treated the courts with beach from the sand from beaches, the sand from the beaches. Then the wind would blow all the sand off, and so they used cornmeal. And that seemed to stay on the courts better to make the disc run. Glass beads came into use in the late 1950s. Plastic discs were introduced in 1946. Aluminum cues became desirable at that time. Bill Sly also originated the Old Men's Tournament. He had a tournament. When they'd run one, there was a separate division for people over 65. And they were called open and closed division. If you were over 65, you could play in the open if you wanted to, but you could play with the old fogies if you wanted to also. I wish they had that rule nowadays. I get tired of getting beaten up by the younger players. In 1968, they honored Bill Sly by naming a tournament after him. They just played it last week, and to brag, my son and granddaughter won it. They beat the they beat the top pros in Ohio. The Lakeside Shuffleboard Club was formed in 1966. And Norma Ferris was a big part of the Shuffleboard Club. She, in 1965, or the year before, she helped add 8 new courts. She was also active in shuffleboard from 1937 to 1974, and she established the Pee Wee and Teener tournaments. In the late 1970s, they decided to tear up the children's courts and replace them with 8 new courts. The Lakeside Association and the Lakeside Club agreed to split the costs. So the Lakeside Club ran a fundraiser. You could buy a part of one court for either $1, $25, $50, or $100. And most adults, I think, gave some higher amounts, but a lot of the kids at that time, they all gave $1. They thought that was a big deal to see their name written on a chart that they gave for that. We do have quite a few other clubs in Ohio: Akron, Bluffton, Canton, Springfield, Greenville, Upper Arlington, and during the summer, we have a tour where we have 1 or 2 tournaments every week, and people will drive from all over the state to play in those tournaments. And since they're driving such a long way, we try to play them in one day. So if we have rain, we'll shorten the matches or play into the evening. And it's a lot of the same people. We get new people at some of the courts, but we have a lot of fun doing that. Lakeside is a family affair. If you look at a lot of the names now that are playing in the youth, their parents have played at Lakeside. Now I'm going to rag a little on Chris. If you look at the bottom left picture, the person on the right is Chris Cermak. Put your hand up, Chris. There, yeah, okay. The two on the right are Shirley Snyder and Bruce Royer. And then there was another fellow that played at that time, Kent Gavin, that were really good. Lakeside has a lot of honors with the Hall of Fames and the awards. In the all-time national points, Bob Sudemeyer, who's here and you'll hear from, has 338. He's third all-time in the nation. Bob Jones is 7th, Larry Ferris is 8th, and Bill Hoyer is 10th. National championships. Bob Sudemeyer, at the young age of 51, has more national championships than anyone all time. He has 23. Larry Ferris has 15. Just a couple stories about Larry. Great player. As his health was fading and he didn't think he could play many more tournaments, he asked me if I would play with him. So I played, I think, in the last tournament he ever played in. That was a real honor for me. But I went down to the courts earlier in my career because it rained. I just wanted to see what was going on. And Larry's down there writing things down. I said, Larry, what are you doing? Well, I'm charting where the puddles are, because then I'll know how the courts drift when they're dry. Larry has 15. Bob Jones has 12. Chris Cermak has 11. Bill Hoyer has 9. Tom Brown, who used to own the dairy dock, has 6. Michael Hirsch has 3. Linda Ruttencutter has 2. Connie Roop has 2. Tyler Brown has 1. And Bob Pfeiffer has 1. International gold medals. Michael Hirsch has won 2 singles, the only person to do that in the world tournament. Bob Jones has one in singles and 1 in team, and Bill Hoyer has 1 in team. We've all won silver medals, and also so has Chris Cermak. National Hall of Fame. Larry Ferris, Bob Jones, Bill Hoyer, Chris Cermak, Bob Sudemeyer, and Rich Pfeiffer. We've hosted 2 international tournaments. And International Hall of Fame, Michael Hirsch, Bob Jones, Larry Ferris, and Rich Pfeiffer. And the Ohio Hall of Fame, Bob Sudemeyer, Larry Ferris, Bill Hoyer, Bob Jones Jr., Tom Brown, and Bob Snyder. Distinguished Service, Ohio Hall of Fame, Rich Pfeiffer, Earl Menzel, Jim Albrecht, Bill Hoyer, Bob and Marjorie Snyder, Norma Ferris, Keith Addy, and Wendell Lutz. So you can see that Lakeside is very well represented around the world. In the international tournaments, you'll see people there from Germany, Norway, Japan, Great Britain, Brazil, Canada, US, Australia. Did I miss anybody? And it's really a wonderful experience to get to see those people from other countries and see what their traditions are and get to play with them. And we always give out medals to who we play with, or pins, I'll say. And so we collect pins throughout the tournament, and then we save them. They're real nice memories. Courts are different, though, in the U.S. anyway. Florida has a little better weather than we do. They're still mostly all concrete. Ours are too. But some people play with rollout courts. They're plastic. And so you lay them down on a flat surface. If you don't lay them on a flat surface, everything will curve on you. And they're snap-together courts. I call them Lego courts. And that's what they play on in Germany and overseas. And I know the World this year is in Texas, but next year it's in Germany, and they'll play on those what I call Lego courts. Also, the speed is different. Here in Lakeside and probably in Florida, if you take a shot, it'd take you, what, 4 or 5 seconds for the disc to get down, would you say, Bob? In Arizona, if you shoot the same way, it takes you 22 seconds. California, 22 seconds. Arizona, 15 seconds. So a little different game. Sometimes you can just go ahead and shove it a little bit and then go out to lunch and get something to drink and come back and see what your disc might have done. So I brought some important people here today with me, and they're each going to speak for a little bit. And first up, talking about the youth tournaments nowadays, will be Marilyn Pfeiffer.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here and talk about my youth. I call them my youth because they all know me. Their families plan their vacations around my tournaments. I have 5 youth tournaments each summer, 4 Norma Ferris tournaments, and 1 national junior tournament. And the goal for all these kids is to win the national junior tournament. And I'm proud to say, as a grandmother to a national champion, Isabel Ernie, and also, let me think here. I have a good story. Anthony Ramacone, you all may know the Ramacone family, played shuffleboard as a youth. Now it's time for him to apply to colleges and go off to college. And so he was writing his resume and he was putting down things. And one of the things he put down was that he was a national champion of shuffleboard. And so when he went in for his interview at Harvard, they said, "What's shuffleboard?" And he explained what shuffleboard was all about. And they said, "You're a national champion?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And he believes that's how he got into Harvard.
Probably was.
Anyhow, that's my fun story. But as far as the history of the youth tournaments, it all began with Norma. Norma, I talked to Marilyn Ferris, and she told me all about Larry's mother. She said she wasn't all that good at playing shuffleboard, but she was a great organizer. She loved to put things together, and she did it, and did it well. She did it so well that Larry came out of that program to be one of the most gifted shuffleboard players of all time. Larry brought the international games to Lakeside in 1995. He put Lakeside shuffleboard on the map. Everyone wanted to come and have a chance at playing at the courts at Lakeside. So there's a sign down on the Lakeside Shack that says, "Lakeside, where the world comes to play." So anytime we sign or register kids into a tournament, we ask them where they're from. And you know, going through all those pages of entrance through the years, we've discovered every continent in the United States is represented by people coming here to play shuffleboard. So that's an amazing fact, and Larry started that. There's only one more thing I wanted to talk about, and that's that Rich Pfeiffer decided that it was time to introduce the youth to the world. So he took, and this was in the German international games, he took 4 Lakeside youth to Germany. Anthony Ramancone, Michael Hirsch, and the Fleischer girls, Katie and Maddie, off to Germany. Their parents went along to supervise. They did like that German beer, I gotta admit. But they had a wonderful time, and they met a lot of German and Austrian and other youth, and they put together a team of youth. And that was the first international youth team to enter the games, and it was a huge success, huge success. So I just had to mention that, and that's the end of my talk for today. My 3 minutes are up.
Thank you, Marilyn. We have an unbelievable staff here at Lakeside that helps to prepare the courts for you to play. And so I've asked a couple of the people to speak. First is the head of the shuffleboard at the courts, Dwight Dowse.
Did you just say I could take more than 5, or were you talking to Jim? I'm watching Jim. At the shuffleboard court, our primary responsibility is to get the courts prepared for use for both the public and also the tournaments. It requires a fair amount of work. In the springtime, we start towards the middle or end of August or April, and we start working on the courts. Every year, we probably do 3 to 4, repaint the courts, grind the courts, and repaint the courts. By the token of the thousands of dollars we spend, last year we had 4 courts reconcreted. They tore out the old concrete and they put in new concrete. It cost $37,000 just to do 4 courts on concrete. Those 4 courts, we're having a little bit of a problem holding the paint these days, but they'll get to that point. Our biggest job is, as I said, maintaining the courts. During the year, we put on an average of 7 courts, 7 waxing situations, and you probably use, I'm going to guess, 100 gallons of wax during the year. Every time we wax the courts, they have to be washed and cleaned, put on new wax. We go through almost 1,000 pounds of glass beads during the year. Every time it rains, the glass beads wash off the court. Every time we have a strong wind, it blows the beads off the court. When we have tournaments, we have to rebead quite a bit, but every year we have a half a ton of beads that get used. The problem that we have during the year is when it rains, you have to get the beads off the court, dry the court, squeegee the court, and get it ready for play. If we have mayflowers, which we have had mayflies every year, if the mayflies get on the court, if it gets stamped on, or if a disc hits them, you see all these black strikes on the court. It doesn't come off very easy. You have to be washed with soap and water to get those things off. And then last year, we had the problem with the sap coming from the trees. Every day, courts 1 through 10, we had to wash, and we had to use Dawn soap to get the sap off the court. So it's an issue going forward. It's not a big problem, but it takes a lot of time and effort on the court staff to get the courts ready. Every day, they're down there at 8 o'clock, or during the tournaments, we're down there between 6:30 and 7, getting the courts ready. We try to be accommodating. Sometimes we're not so accommodating, but we try to get the courts ready for the tournament, and also we try to get them ready for the public, because the public use is by far the biggest use that we have. We have about 30,000 players every year, and I would say the tournament makes up about 250, 300 of those players, but the rest of them are all people in Lakeside, and they enjoy playing shuffleboard also. Now, the one thing I will mention, we talk about equipment. We have our court beater. This beater will bead one court once down and once back. We get a lot of questions from people coming from out of state to play in Lakeside. They ask, well, where can we get the beater? Well, I've never seen anywhere that the beater is sold because Earl Menzel made the beaters here locally. He made every beater, and we have, I think, 5 or 6 beaters, and we get a lot of questions, but they save a lot of time. When you can go up and down once on each court, you can get a lot of courts beaten in a hurry. And with that, I'll turn it back over. I don't want to take too much time.
Question was up front here, how many courts we have. We have 26. So I know I ran the state amateur doubles on Wednesday. And if you were in Lakeside, you know it rained 3 different times. They had to repair the courts 3 different times. He's got a great crew. They got right out on it, and it was pretty unbelievable that we were able to, with 3 delays, still get done by 3 o'clock. And that was great because I at least got home for dinner. So now the discs that we have, and we have a lot of them, are all managed by an outstanding gentleman here. He's also a retired school teacher and track coach. And he just went into the High Hall of Fame this summer for the management that he does on our discs. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jim Albrecht.
Thank you, Bill. Number 1 on my list is I want to let you know that Lakeside Shuffleboard, I believe, is not only the best facility and players in Ohio, but probably the nation, if not the world. May find that hard to believe, but there's some guys here. I don't want to play for money. I play for dimes sometimes during the winter. I have a small group of people. We play year-round. Usually get about 2 matches in each month. A year and a half ago, we were running out of days in January, and the 31st we played because we needed to get a match in. And it was a sunny day and not much wind, and we were very comfortable, even though it was 11 degrees. Well, my little job here is I maintain the discs. The shuffleboard discs we use, we have like 2 sets, a public set and a tournament set. This is like the tournament ones. It's like playing Augusta National. And the public plays, let's say, are much lesser so. We have 56 of these tournament sets and some extras besides. So that's 500 discs that I maintain. These particular discs, called Dimcos, that's for a Dayton Industrial Machine Company, they stopped making them in the late 60s. So as a consequence, we're playing with very old antiques. And with 56 sets, basically we control the entire market in the United States. There's maybe one other location playing Dimcos, and that's Canton, because I sold them some sets. Speaking of Canton, their top player, Marvin McConnell, he and I conferred about how to maintain these. That is, first of all, we are able to purchase them. You can get them on the internet. Chances are you're going to compete against me for buying a set, because I buy about everything that comes up. I bought a set from Canada just the other day. It was only $21 US funds, but it's like 24 Canadian shipping and taxes in Canada and whatever. So, taking care of the discs. They run differently. They're extremely smooth on the bottom. I just revived the red set that you see sitting up here on the table, and it took about 10 minutes per disc, but they're lightning fast compared to the public discs. So that's my part of the service. I'm a good player, but not in the same class as these other people. See, they're tops. You know, a couple of guys from Ohio went down to Florida a year or two ago and won the Florida championship. And that's how good they are. And a lot of guys, you know, national championships, there's a lot of them in this room. So great facility, great high reputation, and the players are up to it and equal. So if you want to buy a set, you can find them on the internet. They're generally beat up and old. They can be revived. But again, they're antiques. These were made in the late 60s. That means most of them are a minimum of 55 years old. And this company sold to another company, and they revised the composition and the quality. So the other, that is the modern ones, they end up looking like this sometimes. Yeah, well. So they're a little softer compared to the antiques that we use, the Dimcos. This is Arco. They're the nation's largest, they're the world's largest supplier. They're from Central Florida. And coincidentally, since we have this 30,000 people a year playing here, we're the ones buying the most beads and probably a lot of the cues too. So they tell us we're the busiest courts, very likely in the whole world, right here in your backyard, because so many of you enjoy playing. Something a little different about us, we encourage kids to play. So we have 5 youth tournaments, and those youth tournaments involve people from around the country. Most common, of course, is Ohio, since it's nearest. But people come from around the country, different places. Texas is big. Arizona's here at our tournaments. Pennsylvania, Indiana, Michigan, the Carolinas, and probably more from Florida. Anyway, so my job is to maintain the 500 disc and help with the best facility in Ohio, maintain the best discs as well. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Jim. He's very modest, but his job is very overwhelming for one person to be able to do it. And now I'm upset he's moving out of Lakeside. But he may drive over every day and do the disc. I don't know. If we can talk him into that. A few other things. We just did have the mixed doubles nationals. It's only the second year, I think, second or third year that it's been played in Lakeside. It used to be played at Greenville, and they'd get like 6 or 8 teams. Then it went to Akron, and maybe they would get 12 teams. This past Thursday, we had 30 teams. And, you know, people are paying the gate fee to come in. We don't charge them any entry fee, and Lakeside Association pays for the prize money. But people they love to play shuffleboard. They love to play it here, and we've just had great crowds. I didn't bring any graphite cues, but once you get playing a little bit, you might want a graphite cue. They come in 1-piece, 2-piece, I think there's 3-piece, and 4-piece. I have a 4-piece, and the people that travel normally do, because it'll fit in your suitcase. So when I go to Texas, I'll be able to put it in my suitcase. Now, everywhere I play, I have to add a little something to the trip. My wife plays shuffleboard, but she doesn't like to play in tournaments. So when I played in Norway, we went to Paris for a week. I was supposed to play in Vienna, and we were going to go to Rome for a week. But that's when I had my tumor taken off my chest. It was going to be in Australia, and they canceled because of COVID. So this year it's in Texas, next year it's in Germany. So, you know, I've never played shuffleboard. I'd like to learn how. Well, every Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock, they give lessons down at the court for people that like to learn a little bit about shuffleboard. Also, on tournament days, this doesn't happen, but other days, the Lakeside Club, we play mixers every day at 9:30, and we encourage people of all levels to play. We play for the big stakes of dimes. We draw for partners, play 2 games, and then play a goofy game for the third. And there's also what they call on Monday night, Moonlight Madness. It starts about 7:45, I believe. Is that correct? 7:45, I think. And it's a quarter. They take 24 people, and they play one regular game, and then they play a game where only the lines count. So if you score a 7 or an 8, that's no score. But if you can get on one of the lines, you get 1 point. And then they play another add-em-up goofy game at the end. So those are ways that people can get involved. And, we hope to see many people. We get newcomers at our mixers all the time that are just being introduced to the game, and then they will, continue with it. Because we do have the best youth program in the nation, and that's the future of shuffleboard. We're not getting any younger, and so we need players behind us. So our last speaker is the one that holds the most national championships of anybody in the country, 23, and he'll have to let me know. He may have won them all at Lakeside. I don't know if he's traveled much, but once he retires and goes to Florida, he's going to have a lot more, and they will not be happy to see him coming. Bob Sudemeyer.
So, as Bill said, I do have 23 national championships, and I'll tell you a little bit about my Lakeside shuffleboard. I started playing shuffleboard pretty young, and I don't remember the exact age, probably not as young as Bill, but it was because my parents could send me to the shuffleboard courts, and they didn't require parental supervision at that time. So they would just say, go to the shuffleboard courts, and I would spend the day at the shuffleboard courts and play a lot of shuffleboard. And somewhere around 7 or 8, I placed in my first tournament, and then, I won some tournaments, and I actually won a junior national tournament too. So if you count that, I got 24. So, but when I turned 16, they said, well, now you can play in the adult tournaments. And I said, that's great. What's the first tournament? And they said, the Bill Sly tournament. And I said, well, I need a partner for that. And they said, I think we can find a partner. I was talking to Dick Jacobs at the time, and he said, there's this guy that plays, he's a pretty good player, and I think you guys would be good partners. His name is Bill Hoyer. So I played my first adult tournament with Bill Hoyer, and it was the Bill Sly tournament, and we had about 42 teams in the tournament that year. And Bill and I made it all the way to the finals for 3rd place. And the story that I will really tell about that tournament, we did take 3rd place. But the story was that Bill was shooting really, really hard. So hard the discs were flying off the court, and that's frowned upon. All right, but he was just, and at one point he shot so hard that the disc he shot broke into 2. All right, just like this.
I don't remember this at all.
And I was the kid, so he said they said go up to the tournament booth and get a new disc. And I took the disc broken in 2 pieces up to the tournament booth, and they said Bill Hoyer did this. And I was like yeah, Bill Hoyer did this. And they said some things that shouldn't be said in Lakeside, and then they said, oh, we'll get him. And they gave me a disc and they said, put this in your pocket. And then they took tape and they wrapped it all around the disc, and they sent me back with the disc taped up, and they said, tell him he has to play with that one. And I brought it back, and they said, I said, well, they said you had to play with this. And then Bill said some things that you shouldn't say in Lakeside. And I quickly pulled it out of my pocket so things didn't escalate, all right? And we finished off the match. But that was my first adult tournament I ever played in. My first national tournament that I won was when I was 18, and I was looking at the chart of it just the other day, and there were some really great names in that particular tournament. But the final four in that tournament were Tyler Brown, Skip McCoy, Larry Ferris, and myself. And I played against Larry Ferris in that particular match, and it was the only time in my entire career that I ever played Larry in singles. And I was fortunate enough to beat him. So I played him one time. Now, I played him in doubles probably 6 times, and he beat me every time. But that one time, I did beat him in the singles. So that was my first national win, and it was a really great honor to play against Larry. And Larry had always been a great mentor to me. And it was also a great honor to win that first national title. Since then, I went on to win 22 other national titles, 13 singles and 10 doubles. Of the 13 singles, I have made it to the finals of the singles tournament 15 times, so I've only lost twice. Once to Jacques Bergeron, who my wife declared as my arch nemesis, and once to Michael Hirsch, and that was actually last year. I've gotten to play against and I've gotten to play with just absolutely wonderful players. I played Bob Jones in the finals twice. I've played Michael Hirsch in the finals 3 times. I've played Red Rudolph in the finals twice. Played Larry Ferris in the finals once. And in the doubles, I have been super fortunate to have a really exceptional partner. And my partner, Chris Ermack, and I have won 8 times. Is that right? Yeah, so, but it has been an absolutely wonderful experience. But the greatest thing about shuffleboard is that, the people you play with, they're wonderful people. And you get to interact with them and tell stories and remember when Bill Hoyer broke a disc and it got taped back together. And it's a friendly competition. And you win some and you lose some, and for the most part, people are great sports about it and just have a good time out there and look forward to the next opportunity to get out there and play. So, you're welcome.
Okay, I got the mic last. Bobby and I have played in the high state doubles before they moved it to Akron. We probably won 5 or 6, I'm not sure how many, in a row. But one time we're playing in the finals against Riley Hubbard and Torben from Germany. And it looks like we might win. And Bobby talk about me shooting hard. Bobby shot a hard disc and it bounced off the back and hit a live disc. We were playing on court 11. Yes, you do. And so we lost points, and then the game went extra frames and extra frames. And to his credit, it got down because we kept being tied. On the last frame, Torben had an 8, and Bob said to himself, I'm tired of playing this match. And he drilled a 10, and we won by 2. Yeah, so it had a good ending, but you didn't break the disc. So I really don't have anything else. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you have some questions. I tried to leave 10 minutes. I'm pretty close on it, too. It's 2:20. So hopefully some of you have some questions. You can direct them to me, or you can direct them to any of the people that have spoken. And when it's over, we have cues up here to look at, some of the wooden cues. We have at the end every yearbook that Ohio has produced. So you can look at any year that you wish. It'll give the results from the year before and list a lot of important things.
I would encourage you to pick up
That's why I wish I would have brought one of my graphite, and I was supposed to, because it's even a lot lighter than the aluminum ones.
Can you tell me, what is the price if I were to go buy a grand trial aluminum one?
Well, aluminum, I'm not sure what they sell for. I just bought a 4-piece graphite because my 4-piece, you usually take them apart after you play. I left mine together too long in Florida, and now it's a 1-piece. I can't get 2 of the sections apart, and I had the bigger people down in Florida that usually can get them apart try, and they couldn't do it. So I bought a new one, and I knew you were going to ask me that. I think it's like $140 for a 4-piece graphite. Where did you buy that? Allen Shuffleboard has any cue, any discs, anything you would like. Allen Shuffleboard in Florida. So if you go online and do Allen Shuffleboard. Allen with an E, though? Yes, A-L-E-N. And
Okay, there's a question over here.
what now? Oh, Dwight said in the next couple of days, one of the representatives from Allen Shuffleboard is going to be here. Okay.
Question. Yeah, shuffleboard seems to have like two major parts of it. The one, of course, is the accuracy of scoring and knocking the other person off and putting 10 off and so forth. But then I think the other component is strategy. And I guess my question is, do most of the top winning shuffleboarders use the same type of strategy, or how does it vary?
Yeah, we use a lot of similar. Normally, your first block put up is put up high somewhere so that you can hide behind it, rather than just go on the board and let your opponent knock it off. And so we put it up high because you don't have the last shot. And a lot of the players are good enough that if you're in the 8 or 7, they'll hit you right into the 10 off. And now you got 2 to shoot at. So if you put one up high and they leave it alone and nothing's there, then you can hide behind it maybe where they can't get it. So that's a lot of the strategy.
The capricious disc on this website, click on that. The whole book's there. That's strategy.
What? Here, go ahead.
There's a textbook that's on the internet. You can access that by going to zephyrhillsshuffle.com and click a thing that says Shuffleboard 101, and the 16-chapter book is there for you to learn strategy and history and everything else about shuffleboard.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy to it. If you watch a lot of people that play shuffleboard socially down at the courts, they just throw everything on the board and bang them off. And, you know, some of the secret is if you're going to hit the other opponent, you want to leave yours there. You know, so now you have a score rather than just knock them off and you're nowhere around. So, yeah, there is a lot of strategy. Did that answer your question? Oh, they said up here not to say all the strategy things.
Yeah, Mr. Hoyer.
Yes.
Let's see. You said that every year you often have to pour new courts, right? Make new courts. In other words, a single.
I'm not sure.
Well, anyway, when. Okay. Well, the real question I'm getting at is: are the courts crowned in the middle?
No.
No. Okay.
Because they might be by accident.
Because they fade sometimes.
Yeah,
you know.
They're supposed to be flat, but most courts are not, which means depending on where you shoot, your disc is going to curve one way or the other. If you play out here on 19 or 20, your disc will curve 3 discs one way or the other. So you have to kind of allow for that. But they should be flat, and believe it or not, with the weather over the winter, discs change from year to year. Or I mean courts change from year to year. a court that used to drift quite a bit won't drift as much the next year. And so thanks for your question. It's good.
Thank Bill for and his team of people. And if you haven't played shuffleboard, Al is great with those lessons on Tuesday mornings, so stop down for those. And it's a fun time. I've been observing all the families, and they play together, and we have a strategy where we sometimes place the children and parents or grandparents on certain courts for the serious people. We stay away from the shuffleboard club people in the mornings when little children come, but it's great learning experience and fun time for everybody.
Well, if you want to watch some good shuffleboard, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is the national singles. Men and women have a choice of either playing in the walking, which means they play at each end, or the non-walking, where you stay at one end and play your match. And the finals are going to be, weather permitting, Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. And so that's a good sight to see, because the youth play on Wednesday and we play their finals Wednesday night. So there'll be 4 matches plus the 2 youth matches. And then Thursday and Friday is the national doubles, men's doubles and ladies doubles. So if you're inkling to play in a tournament, come on down. We'll try to find you a partner for one of them.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Next Sunday, Dave Bowling will be talking about Lakeside's beginning in 1874, so you can come for that. And please go up front and check out the equipment and the materials that they brought. Thank you.